Starships are dope, but what's even better are specially designed warships built for versatility and mobilization. That's right, we're revisiting a fan favorite, and no, it's not the Venator. Today we talk about everything that is the Acclamator-class assault ship. Quick interruption, I have reached 1,000 subscribers, and for that I'm giving away 3 different Star Wars items to 3 subscribers. The first item is the Mandalorian Black Series, straight out of Season 1 with Din Djarin's worn-out armor, back before he became the shining Mandalorian Knight of the galaxy. The second item is a Darth Vader Funko Pop, frankly because Darth Vader is the greatest bad guy out there and you can't go wrong with him unless you're a youngling. The third and final item is the LEGO 501st Clone Battle Pack. The 501st is the best, and in this set you get a clone officer, specialist, and 2 heavy weapons clone troopers. I will be running this giveaway from now to the end of August. All you have to do to be entered in to win is subscribe to the channel, like this video, and leave a comment on who your favorite character is in Star Wars. The more videos you watch and comment on, the more entries you receive. I will be keeping track of entries and announce the winners in September. I do have to mention that this is only available to residents of the United States. I unfortunately cannot ship outside of the country due to shipping prices. But that's the gist. I hope to continue on this journey and do more and more giveaways. Maybe some lightsabers one day, but we'll see. Now, back to your nerdy content. Like I alluded to before, I have discussed this vessel before, but considering I've had multiple comments about this warship popping up quite frequently, I figured, hey, let's talk about it some more, because maybe I missed some stuff. Which I will admit I have grown in my ability, albeit not much when it comes to YouTube videos. I think I can bring a different twist and maybe some more information for those who might not know about this incredibly designed warship. It is truly awesome, and I will give my thoughts on it at the end of the video. But for now, kick back and let's talk about the Acclimator. Before we really deep dive on this heavy cruiser, we should talk about the specs and other various stats. It was manufactured by Rothana Heavy Engineering, which, if you did not know, is a subsidiary of Co-op Drive Yards. They created this vessel, classifying it as a heavy cruiser at 752 meters in length, with a width of 460 meters and a height of 183 meters in flight. But unlike larger Star Destroyers, this transport could make planet-side landings. It stood at 200 meters tall while its landing gear were engaged and could deploy 2 large ramps from its cargo bay, unloading legions of soldiers and heavy walkers among other armor. One truly amazing aspect of this cruiser was its speed. It could travel at 1,200 kilometers in atmosphere, but that's not the speed I want to brag about. This vessel maintained a hyperdrive rating of class 0.6. For reference, the Millennium Falcon has a modified hyperdrive with a class rating of 0.5, so you could say that the Acclimator gets you where you're needed and fast. It was able to achieve this with twin hyperdrive engines. This specific design element was required to rapidly deploy the Grand Army of the Republic throughout the galaxy. Now, the Acclimator assault ship is lacking in what I would consider an important area, that is when it comes to armament. It's armed with 12 quad turbo laser turrets, 24-point defense laser cannons, 4 heavy missile torpedo launch tubes, most carrying 100 high-yield proton torpedoes and 20 assault concussion missiles each, which in honesty could be looked at as average at best. I wouldn't go as far to say that you would want to throw this cruiser at a Luke or Hulk battleship, but it could hold its own offensively. It just isn't going to be the heavy hitter of the battle group. The defensive capabilities of this vessel are another issue. One that saw many of these cruisers taken out by simple anti-air laser cannon barrages. I will mention that these were heavy cannons, not just simple laser fire. However, if you put the Acclimator under the twin forward heavy laser cannon assault of a Munificent-class frigate, then the Acclimator will be torn apart. Of course, you could argue that the ship-to-ship engagements were never their primary design function. They were quick transport heavy cruisers made to bombard an enemy's position and quickly deploy large numbers of forces onto the surface of a planet. Hence the 4 heavy missile and torpedo launch tubes, soften the enemy and make planet fall. This was all done by a crew of just 700, which is mind-blowing and efficient for a vessel found within the Star Wars universe. My favorite bloated vessel to point out, the ISD, is a prime example of how not to crew a warship. Nice to know that the Empire loses around 50,000 officers enlisted and stormtroopers when their Imperial Star Destroyers blow up. But the Acclimator class is far from the Imperial class in crew functionality, and being a vessel made for transportation and deployment, this assault ship could carry 16,000 clone troopers and support personnel. And that's just people. When it came to vehicle capacity, it could hold 320 speeder bikes, 80 LAATs, 66 LAAT infantry, and 14 LAAT cargo, 48 all-terrain tactical enforcers, and 36 self-propelled heavy artillery. If that's not enough, most planetary campaigns had multiple acclimators landing throughout the population zones and establishing command centers and forward operation bases. Which, personally, I can't think of a better base than one that can launch high-yield proton torpedoes at approaching droid forces that love to march in neat little columns. But what about the physical structure of the vessel? Rothana created the now iconic wedge-shaped design of the Acclimator to help concentrate firepower while also maintaining a more narrow attack profile. This helped the Acclimator charge through blockades and deploy the GAR forces on the surface of occupied systems. The large hangar bays and ramps made offloading of entire clone legions and their walkers easy and rather quick. The bridge of the Acclimator was located in the middle of the arrow-shaped command tower. This, of course, was similar to many other Kuat Drive Yard starships, which Rothana also supplied. One thing I find interesting is the bridge has a lack of windows that are usually made of transparasteel, like those triangular viewports seen on Venators and ISDs. Instead, the Acclimator used advanced holoscreens that were then shaped to match the look of later viewports, using more standard transparasteel. I'm not entirely sure as to the choice behind this other than maybe added bridge defense. This could provide an issue when in combat, as the enemy could specifically target your bridge holoscreen recorders and effectively blind the command crew, although remaining sensors and scopes could be used to acquire positioning. Nonetheless, this would severely cripple the combat effectiveness. I know in other fictional universes like Halo, bridge viewports are sometimes non-existent, as the bridge would be found within the vessel or just heavily armored. In this way, cameras and other sensors would give the pilot and commanders the view they required. Gist Ascendancy vessels are another example of a similar defensive measure, as they would lock down and seal bridge viewports when in combat to protect against possible attack. This added protection could prevent out-of-control A-wings from bashing into your bridge. When it came to hull armor, the Acclimator was encased in ultra-dispersive neutronium. This was a common element used in manufacturing of durasteel, as neutronium could disperse and withstand massive energy blasts. Fusion rockets used by the CIS seemed to have little effect on the heavy cruiser as a result. Now that this ship is broken down and you've been served your stats on this vessel, I think we should move on to its history. The Acclamator-class assault ship is a design that would have been worked on prior to the Clone Wars. Rothana Heavy Engineering, along with Kuat Drive Yards, were secret about their construction of this heavy cruiser, as warships of this size and with its capabilities hadn't been seen throughout the galaxy in a number of years. The Acclimator was the first of many large-scale warships that would foreshadow the bloodshed seen throughout the Clone Wars and into the reign of the Empire. Early testing of this cruiser was seen around 32 BBY. The model would then be perfected by Rothana's engineers. By the time Yoda arrived at Kamino, dozens of Acclimators would be crewed and prepared for combat. During the first Battle of Geonosis, these assault ships would be pivotal in the Republic's rescue of thousands of Jedi already on the scene and engaged with Separatist forces. Hundreds of LAAT dropships would deploy the first wave of clone troopers and ATTE walkers. Forward command stations would also be put in place by LAATCs as the clone army established a foothold on the surface. After a successful deployment, Acclimator vessels would return to orbital position and provide support to ground forces or engage Separatist warships. With the complete success of the Geonosis campaign, the Republic would order around 1,000 more Acclamator-class heavy cruisers. These were then used alongside Venator-class Star Destroyers, one providing the clone legions and the other with starfighter escort and support. The Acclimator II class assault ship would be introduced during the twilight of the Clone Wars. This model would have more of an emphasis on orbital bombardment. To make room for the added weaponry, the cargo capacity was reduced by roughly 80%. Many of these models were used primarily by Republic clone commando units and Imperial clone commandos. During its time in the Imperial Navy, the Acclimator was still used as a military transport and warship, although not so much within fleets but instead planetary defense roles. On a darker note, the Empire would also use some Imperial Acclimators as slave ships, transporting large numbers of enslaved peoples to various Imperial penal colonies throughout the Empire. Sadly, a number of these heavy cruisers were stripped of their weaponry to make room for more additional cargo holds, turning these once noble vessels into Imperial cargo ships. Whether they transported a planet's wealth and resources, or even just its people, these glorious starships meant to fight oppression quickly became the tool to deliver it. Now, why do people seem to love the Acclamator class so much? For one, its looks. The design of this assault ship is very aesthetically pleasing. The simple wedge-shaped design, single command tower, and exposed engines give it a nice physical characteristic. I think it looks great and is second only to the Venator-class Star Destroyer, but that's really just impossible to beat. Another thing people love is its capabilities. It has a strong armament providing a decent amount of firepower for ship-to-ship engagements and orbital strikes, while also being capable of supporting ground forces effectively. It can make planet-side landings and establish command centers for Republic forces and quickly unload legions of troopers and walkers. It is efficient in its crew capacity, which, as I mentioned before, isn't too common among Star Wars warships. They tend to be bloated and overcrowded. The Acclimator is none of those, and it can hold thousands of soldiers, gunships, and heavy armor without breaking a sweat. Finally, I'll say that many people like this ship for its potential. The high output reactors and cargo capacity means that retrofitting this model with heavier turbo lasers, ion cannons, and additional point defense turrets would make the Acclimator class deadly in a slugging match. Unlike the Venator, it doesn't have structural weaknesses, so it can take a beating. Of course, this is hypothetical and only possible through modification, but like I said, many people like to build their own fleets and use retrofitted Acclimators to smash their enemies. I love the Republic era designs because many aren't created with the idea of obliterating planets or intimidating their enemies. The Venator class and Acclimator class were built to defend the Republic. They were the shining symbols of the Grand Army and its navy. When you saw a fleet of Venators and Acclimators over your planet, you weren't afraid, you were hopeful. But maybe that's all just Republic propaganda. I'll let you decide. Let me know if I missed anything on the Acclimator class assault ship, and if you have not subscribed, please do so. I welcome all fans, new and old. Like this video on your way out, have an amazing day, and may the Force be with you.